He opened up in an interview now that he's down in Atlanta, and he had some key points he had with the Patriots, how he didn't like the ending of his time with New England and the negotiations. Like we saw an animated conversation with him and Gerard Mayo on the field. He spoke to Elliot Wolf and Matt Groh as well. He said, I feel like we never sat down and came to the table as a man. He's talking about him with the team. That's the biggest point. They didn't know where I was at. I didn't know where they were at. It was always through text messages and phone calls. I feel like that was the biggest disconnect. He asked to sit down. He sent messages through his agent and asked personally, but they never sat down one-on-one. You know what? I hear this. I understand where Judon's coming from, but this is how it's going to go. If you have an agent, the front office would rather talk to the agent where you maintain the relationship. Because if stuff goes sour, you're going to hear things you don't want to. If you're talking face-to-face with your employer and the person that controls your paycheck and want to negotiate it yourself, you're going to hear things you don't want to. Can you handle that? Can you handle the hard truth? The Patriots probably felt Judon can't. And again, if this guy is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, or that's someone that's well-respected in this locker room and around the league, if we tell him hard truths to his face, then it can lead to other guys in this locker room saying, well, you know what? I don't like New England. So they go through the agent, and that's the job of the agent because they understand how to take things objectively. They understand its numbers, its data, it's a budget, which they have, even though they have $50 million in cap space. I agree with the Patriots trading him. I agree with them not giving him money. He wasn't going to be here when Drake May is eventually the starter and they're a playoff team. For Matt Judon, I understand you want to talk one-on-one and just speak from your heart. You feel like you have a real conversation. I think the Patriots were protecting him by only going to his agent and not sitting down with him one-on-one.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because even in our business, George, we deal with a lot of agents. We deal with a lot of those kinds of things. And from my personal experience in local news, it was always better to have your agent kind of handle those kinds of difficult situations because you're right. There are things that you don't want to hear. There are realities and truths that you're going to not agree with and you're not going to want. And instead of making yourself look bad and possibly arguing and making, the situation worse, why not go through that agent? And I think that's what the Patriots were trying to do. And when you use the word, oh gosh, and I forgot the word already, for him to go out on the field and have those conversations with Gerard Mayo. Animated. Thank you. Here I am, a word. I can't think. I didn't think they were too animated. I mean, he said they looked like they were having a serious discussion. But again, I think just that kind of attitude, the whole thing that was going around the situation, you don't really want that around the team, especially in your first year as a coach, too. Imagine how tricky and stressful that can be on top of everything else. So I think, these animated conversations, they didn't look too bad, in my opinion, but I can see how, he proceeded then to say, the business side, I want to talk to them face to face, but the business side is the side that I have a problem with. And that's just the way it is. It's 2024. It's always going to be like this, if not more in the future.
Yeah, that's where it's the animated convo again. Yeah. And like Gerard Mayo commented on it, like it was a healthy conversation. We spoke, that's it. And to be in those situations, like you mentioned, when you're in local news, it's the same thing with me. I remember being in those rooms. They're like, all right, we want to bring you back. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, what's the raise? And they're like, well, it's, 3%. And like back in the day, I don't care. I'll share my salary in local news because it was absolute like dog crap. In Joplin, I was making $24,000 a year and I had to fight for that.
Yep.
In Madison, Wisconsin, I was making 37 or 38K. And I remember it was in 2020 between protest coverage and sports coverage, I won first place in best live on news, live reporting, news live scene reporting. I won first place best sportscast and first place for best sports reporting. So I won those 3 awards and my contract was up and I went to them. Yeah, right. No, it was cool. It was awesome, right? But I went to them with that and they were told, yeah, we were only approved a 3% raise, which was $1,000. And they were like, but we'll do incentive-based. And I go, incentive-based, I was literally the best news and sports reporter in the state of Wisconsin in my market, medium-sized market. But that's how it goes. And like, that's what it'll be in local news. It's the same thing in the NFL. It's the same thing with people if they're working in finance or accounting or working in HR at some company, right? You're going to have those hard combos. I get it. And I applaud Matt Judon for trying to have those one-on-one combos. For that to be a big gripe, I think the Patriots did right by him. And they had to look at it long form on like, what the repercussions can be within their own building and across the league. We're talking with other free agents. Like if he's down in Atlanta, there are guys on Atlanta they like, or guys in Chicago, it's what it came down to. And then he goes, man, this is what the Patriots said. They suck. Then they can't go back on that. Like that's a guy that carries a lot of weight. He was a leader on the team, a leader on the field. He was their best player, in my opinion. They needed him back. but 32 years old, coming off a biceps injury. And that aside, it wasn't a leg injury. I wasn't worried. But 32 years old, coming off of that injury, they did right by him to protect him in a way on not talking to him. It was interesting. He wanted to sit down and have those messages, but you got to go through the agent at that point. And I think it says a thing too. Like Lamar Jackson negotiated his own contract himself, and it worked out for him. You wait for Jalen Hurts to come down, and then went. He's also a quarterback. He has the leverage in this situation. They probably know if they sat down one-on-one with Matt Judon, he wouldn't be able to handle what they would have to say well. He probably wouldn't take it the right way. And maybe they just saw like it wouldn't be a good conversation to have. So yeah, you could ask for it, Matt. We're just not going to give it to you. Here are texts and here are phone call updates. That's all we can give you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with the whole business side of things, you do kind of have to keep your emotions out of it. When you have to make the right decision for yourself, for the team, for the longevity of everyone's success involved, you have to think about it critically. Again, taking everything into consideration before you make those decisions. And I think for him, he did everything right. You know, he requested the in-person conversations. He asked to talk. He showed concern. He expressed himself. I think that was great. However, this is just the way that it goes. And I think ultimately it ended in the best way that it could have, because you mentioned he's 32 years old. He missed the majority of last season with 13 games or something from this injury. So they've done it without him already. They knew it was possible. And again, he was a leader with the team. He was one of the best defensive players out there as well, 2021, 22. But, this is just the way it went. And it's unfortunate because I hope it doesn't leave a sour taste in anyone's mouth, because again, you just do have to accept that it is what it is at the end of the day. But I think, it could have been messier if maybe he got involved personally. I think the way that it happened leaves everyone with a good reputation, leaves everyone in good hands. And hopefully, a lot of success for him in the future.
Yeah, and also, it also worked out best for him. He didn't get the extension. Mm-hmm. He hasn't gotten one with the Falcons, but he went from the Patriots, who are going to be a 4 or 5 win team, to the Falcons, who are going to be a division winner, upgraded at quarterback immensely, have a great play caller in Zach Robinson leading that offense now, a defensive-minded head coach. He's in such a better football situation being down in Atlanta, along with 3 other rookies they drafted along their defensive line to play up front with, and a solid defense, especially on the back end with the cornerback help he has. He's in a better situation. So, yeah, they didn't want to have those talks, and it probably hurts. You don't want to talk to me man to man, but that is Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo knowing they don't want to cross that bridge because there's no coming back. And overall, looking back on it now, this is probably the last time we talk about Matt Judon, but I love that he did open up of these were my demands, they weren't met. Him being in Atlanta is a great situation because no matter what it looks like right now as a recording of this episode, he's a free agent. He'll be a free agent at the end of the year. He will get paid more being a free agent coming out of Atlanta with a winning team, being a key contributor to that defense, or he gets a second contract with them. And you know what? They run it back, and they're a more legit contender in their division and their conference than the Patriots will be. So even if it's play for the Falcons, prove yourself, we'll give you a 2-year extension after that. I'd rather be proving myself in the building every day with the Atlanta Falcons than with the New England Patriots. At his age, I'd rather be beating myself up, playing the sport of football. It's brutal, but for a winning team than barely making it to mid-October, hopefully with 1 or 2 wins at that point.
Yeah, it's going to ultimately make him more valuable, I think, in that situation. When you're in a situation that's going to allow you to get, a little more success in the way that you broke it down, George, he will be a little more valuable, whether that goes to someone else or whether he stays with Atlanta. I think it's a good situation for him. And again, you mentioned his age. Think about Jacoby Brissett and the situation that he's in with the Patriots. He's kind of fighting for that QB number 1 role at the age that he's at. And it kind of sucks for him. Honestly, it does. Because you think about the years that you've put in, how much you've dedicated to the game. You want to be in a place that allows you the playing time, the success, and everything that you've worked so hard for. So in this particular instance, again, it is kind of a win-win situation. I think Gerard Mayo said that exact thing himself. So it all turned out okay for them. But yeah, I think, this is a tough game. Your body can only take so much for so long. And I think for him, he has to kind of take that into consideration. And he mentioned in an interview, I think, where he's just going to start, living where his feet are. And I think that's the right approach here. He left New England. He left the Patriots. Everything's fine. He's going to live where his feet are in Atlanta and do the best that he can.
It is interesting. They gave him the option between Chicago and Atlanta. He wouldn't say why he picked Atlanta.
Yeah.
But he picked the Falcons. I think that'll be better for the Pats. I think it'll be a better draft pick, that 3rd round pick he was traded for. But again, where he would have went, Chicago or Atlanta, he would have been in a better situation than what he was with New England.